Namaskar, welcome back. Viewers, like you, we too have been following the fast-paced developments in next door Nepal, and with the new Prime Minister, interim Prime Minister taking charge, we hope she will be able to restore law and order on the streets of Nepal. But did you know that a VDEM report, Varieties of Democracy report, had ranked Nepal at least 50 notches higher than India on the democracy index. Meanwhile, a happiness index report has also come recently, which shows war-torn Palestine, Ukraine and even Pakistan rank much higher on the happiness index than India. Earlier, we have seen similar reports coming about Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and we all know what happened there. All these rankings and reports beg the question, what is the criteria that is followed in getting to these findings? Who prepares these reports? And most importantly, is it just a lack of due diligence or is there a bigger agenda involved? All these questions on Media Scan this weekend, and we have two stalwarts to discuss the subject with us. But before that, a quick report.
Serious questions are being raised the world over about international rating agencies which come out with periodic reports on democracy, freedom, religious tolerance, gender equality, and even happiness. The criteria, methodology, and political narrative of these rankings and reports appear questionable. The most recent instance is the Varieties of Democracy report released in 2025, which ranked Nepal at 55 out of 179 countries and India at 100. This despite India having smoothly conducted the largest election on the planet recently and Nepal going through political upheaval and constant instability. The latest World Happiness Index also rated Nepal, Pakistan and even war-torn Ukraine and Palestine higher than India. The Global Hunger Index, the Gender Gap Report and the Human Development Index have shown similar trends. A Thomson Reuters report shows India more dangerous than Syria and Afghanistan, and of all the ironies, the Gender Gap Report showed India below Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. Are such weird findings of these rankings and indices a lack of due diligence or just plain agenda?
So as you have seen in the report just now, we will be talking about some of those indices and also some related issues. I have here with me in the DD studios Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, well-known author. You have been listening to him on Doordarshan for a long time. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Smita. Pleasure to be here with you.
And senior journalist, senior advisor with the Ministry of Information Broadcasting, Kanchan Gupta. Welcome, Dada. And Ashokji, if I may come to you first, I want to understand from you, sir, when the VDEM, which looks at democracy or claims to look at democracy globally, says Nepal is so many, almost 50 notches above India, or it says that things are much better in neighboring Bangladesh or even Sri Lanka when the country almost erupted on the streets. What is the first thought that comes to you regarding these indices, and also what do you think is the criteria they employ to arrive at these kind of weird findings?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on the show, Smita. You're very right when you say that these indices raise a lot of questions. So, at one end, whether you're talking about the happiness index or you're talking about the report that has come out from VDEM, where it places Nepal so many notches above India, it raises that, it very seriously questions the credibility of the institutions and of the report. And you are forced to ask as to what is the basis on which this reporting has been done. Since you have, Smita, brought out the question of Nepal, democracy in Nepal. If you look at it, democracy in Nepal came into being in 2008, one could say, because, at that time the Constituent Assembly was established and the monarchy was done away with. It went into history. So it has barely had an experience of 17 years. In these 17 years, Nepal has had 14 different prime ministers.
Yes.
Even if you look at 2015, when you had the new constitution came in, and after that it has been about 10 years, and there have been 9 different governments in that. Even more closely, 2022, the elections were held. For these last 3 years, you've had 3 prime ministers.
Yes.
And how have they been able to respond to the demands of the people in terms of, democracy is not only elections. Democracy is also as to how you are responding to the aspirations and the ambitions of people. And that we have seen over the last few days, that as the Gen Z has come onto the streets, it is basically, as far as their economic well-being is concerned, the corruption in the system, the malgovernance, that non-transparency, non-accountability, in every sense of the word, the democracy there has failed. So, just putting it that it is, elections taking place. But as far as India is concerned, meaning we have had political stability, we have had regular elections, we have strong institutions. So I think India's democracy is far more robust and stronger. Now, you also asked that question, if I may very quickly respond to that, as to what is responsible. Is it the fact that they don't do due diligence? I think both the reasons are there that we have to focus on.
Okay, sir, if I may intervene,
Sure.
we shall come to those questions again in a minute.
Sure.
I want to bring in Kanchan Gupta here. Kanchan da, one wonders, this VDEM report, let's take that first before we come to the others. This VDEM report was based on findings of 2024. And considering the fact that Nepal has had 13 governments in as many years, couldn't the people who collated or compiled the inputs, couldn't they have gauged the kind of dissatisfaction in the youth of the country, considering Nepal has been going through political upheaval and street protests every few years?
Thank you for having me on your show. Smita, let's quickly just go through the process of coming up with these reports. So the VDEM report is a perceptional report. They have groups from various areas and countries of the world who compile their perception of democracy levels in specific countries within given parameters. So it is not by any chance a statistical report which gives you numbers. It's basically opinion. Number one. Number two, when you say that didn't they have a sense of what's happening in Nepal, you must ask, why are these reports produced? I mean, whom does it help? These are essentially meant for foreign-funded NGOs. Now, if they can show that their work in Nepal has a large number of foreign-funded NGOs working over there, working behind the scenes, working in front of public eye, and manipulating politics, manipulating outcomes. So all kinds of NGOs are involved over there. Now, if they can show that their work has had a positive impact, then their funding not only stays, but there are chances of the funding getting increased, and and that if they go into new countries, new zones, there will be further funding for them. So this is the purpose behind the report. Number two, you mentioned the Index of Democracy report. There are several such reports. There is the Index of Happiness report. Now, if you look at the Index of Happiness report, it's a laugh riot. I mean, countries which are burdened with hunger, death, misery are shown to be happier than India. Now, if you look at the Index of Freedom report, which comes from Freedom House in America, it is a Soros-funded agency. Now they use media reports to come up with their index. Now, one of the reports which they had used was the fake story about encrypted messages being cracked by the government of India, which was put out by the Wire. The Wire had to then take it down. The Wire had to offer an apology. But the freedom of index report stays online, and in due course, it becomes a valid primary source of information. Similarly, if you look at the hunger report, I mean, countries to which India exports food, countries to which India donates food, they are ranked higher than India in the index, in the hunger index.
Right.
Now, again, why? Because it serves the purpose of NGOs working in those countries, because they will say that, look, our work has improved the condition in XYZ country. Now we should be sent to India to work over there, and please open up your purse strings and give us a lot more money. So, it's
a business interest. It's hardly about the actual status of democracy, and perhaps that is why they choose to label India as an electoral autocracy at a time when India has had a spate of political stability nowhere visible in the world, not even in the European countries. Dada, I will come back to Ashok Sajjanhar quickly. Ashok ji, there is one more subject I want to touch upon. Kanchan da has already flagged the hunger index, the happiness index. They, from time to time, these agencies and organizations, they also come up with a global gender gap report. There was one such report by the Thomson Reuters Foundation, which had ranked of all countries, Afghanistan, Pakistan and Syria above India in terms of gender gap. Now, I mean, how bizarre can you get? Everybody knows what is the situation in Afghanistan. I'm sorry to add, most recently, Afghanistan has gone through an unfortunate earthquake, and we have reports that the people who were working for the rescue, they refused to lift the dead bodies of the women who died in the earthquake, because apparently it is not, religiously allowed to touch dead bodies of women who are not your family members. So they left the dead bodies of women to rot. In the light of all these things, can Afghanistan have a better gender status than India or even Pakistan?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Smita. I think we shouldn't really be discussing this, because I think any right-thinking individual would know very clearly that, what has been happening, particularly after 2021 in Afghanistan. What is the condition of women and girls even? They are not allowed to go to schools, they are not allowed to go to work, they are not allowed to go out of the house, without being chaperoned. Even in much more advanced societies, Muslim societies, Islamic societies, they are not allowed to drive, they have to have a chaperone with them, etc. So, as
even
far
to peep out of the windows.
Yes, absolutely. So I think the condition of women in countries like Afghanistan, where they have to sort of, cover themselves all up, there is, we have seen that normal professions and work and education, all that is denied to the women. So I think this sort of reports, as I said in my earlier remarks also, this really strains the credibility and reliability. And I think these institutions are doing much greater harm to themselves by coming up with these reports. But, let me also come to another, one of the reasons that was, mentioned for this. I think definitely, what Kanchan Gupta mentioned about the NGOs, etc. But in between, there is a huge ideological and political bias also involved.
Right.
You can't do away with that, because, whatever it might be, that there is, there are more right-leaning governments coming to power, more recently. But as they say, as far as the system is concerned, the education is concerned, media is concerned, universities are concerned, it is still the left-leaning, liberal, so-called liberal ideas that dominate that rule. And, we've been talking about
if I may add here, you must have seen in our report as well, Is that the reason that ever since 2014, we have seen a very systematic, a planned kind of a downsliding of India in these rankings, whether it is Freedom House, VDEM report, the USCIRF or other such, ratings?
No, absolutely. I think it is the political, thinking of those people who are working there. And, you had asked also the question, Smita, earlier as to what could be responsible. Is it lack of due diligence? Is it? I think it is all of that. It is total, all these, the manner in which these reports are prepared are totally non-transparent. Who are the experts? What are the questions? What is it that they are getting? We know that as far as foreign media is concerned, they think, and even as far as think tanks are concerned and such bodies are concerned, they prepare reports which they think will sell, which people will like reading. And that is why we find even in the media, there was recently an internationally recognized newspaper. It was recruiting some people in India, and they said, we want people who can very strongly be critical of the ruling dispensation and of the government.
You mean the New York Times?
Yeah, meaning I didn't want to mention that, but that came out in the open.
Yes.
So they can be so blasé about it, they can be so open about it, that we are going to write, focus on things that are against the government. So definitely, whether it is non-transparency, it is political ideology, these are definitely reasons why these reports tend to be so one-sided. Just one last comment, if I could give. Smita is on this, hunger index that we were talking about. Ever since COVID struck 2020, India has been providing, food items, food grains to about 800 million people of the country. And, there is no way that there can be hunger amongst them. It is basically...
And ironically, sir, one of the reports of the Freedom House had particularly mentioned lack of social security during this government's rule as one of the reasons for downsliding India. I mean, how paradoxical is that?
Indeed.
But I want to come to Kanchan Da back here. Kanchan Da, I just want to carry on from where you left off. You said that these are basically perceptional reports based on people's opinions. There is no statistical or empirical data that they study. But then in course of time, it becomes a primary source. And isn't it a fact that it is also meant to, influence investments into the country, interest of various global agencies who want to work and invest in our country? So in a way, no matter how undemocratic, they do influence the future of the country economically and otherwise.
Well, up to a point, yes, but by now nobody, or let me put it this way, by now everybody knows how these reports are framed, for which purpose, and the credibility of the claims made in these reports. Also, don't forget that India is not an inaccessible country. So if somebody is making a $1 billion investment over here, that person can always come in and see for himself or herself what the country is like. So these reports, I don't think, play on the minds of investors as much as they provide an excuse to governments and government agencies in the West. This whole idea that the West knows best, it is now being perpetrated. Earlier it was through gunboat diplomacy, it was through waging war, it was through smash and grab, it was through regime change, which continues to happen. And now they have got, now they have weaponized these indices to sort of create the ground for Western intervention, either by way of aid or way of assistance or sanctions, and they sort of validate their actions with these reports. But again, we must remember that they have a limited credibility. For instance, the USCIRF report, which is actually a Department of State funded and produced report, does not impact India-America ties beyond,
Yes.
some homilies by some people. So I would not take them so seriously, but they are definitely an irritation. They are an irritation because they do not reflect the changes that have happened in India, and they do not sort of depart from this line which I mentioned, that the West knows best. So there was a time when Amnesty International was deciding whether a country had human rights or it didn't have human rights. Now you have Democracy Index and VDEM and Freedom House deciding that. So it goes on, and if once
Yes.
these agencies pack up, I'm sure there will be others who come up. But I would like to add something over here. We should also, by we, I don't mean only us, but all impacted countries. We should also come up with a response. For instance, what is the actual state of democracy and freedom in the West? I can give you a very good recent example where our permanent mission in Geneva had to intervene when the Swiss representative, of all people, the Swiss representative stood up and said that minorities need to be treated better in India,
Yes.
and there should be greater freedom of press. And it is ironical because Switzerland has voted against mosques and minarets. They have voted against apparel which is indicative of religious
Any religious
identity.
markers.
And it's an openly racist country, racist society, which is intolerant to any outsider, whether black, blue, or green.
Yes.
And for them to say this, so clearly this was an attempt. I mean, they were being used as the proverbial cat's paw by some people, and we came up with a very strong response. And I'm very
Correct.
happy
Yes.
that our people called out Switzerland's racism in the rejoinder.
And Kanchanda, in fact, this was the next question that I wanted to take on the show because we have very little time left. So I'll get a take from Ashok ji also on this. Ashok Sajjanhar, sir, it's a fact that not only India, various countries in Africa, in Latin America, in across the globe are feeling the sting of these very, very biased, agenda-based ratings that are coming out, and they have started flagging their concerns at various forums, including the media. Like Kanchanda said, we've had enough of this West knows best. Maybe it is time that the global South should rise up and also come up with similar indices, if not indices, at least reports and statistics, which can tell the world where exactly we are going.
No, absolutely. Permit me to make 2 points, quick points on this. Number one, we definitely need to challenge these reports.
Yes.
Go as I was mentioning, as far as, what is the basis on which these experts are selected, what are the sort of questions, get more transparency as far as this whole issue is concerned, and say that, it has to be made more credible, balanced, etc. So number one, challenge them. Number two, get more transparency. Number three, have our own reports of this same nature, get your own institutions. And taking forward your suggestions, Smita, I think there is no better country than India, because when we are talking about
take a lead,
to take the lead in this, whether we are talking about democracy, whether we are talking about hunger, freedom, etc., etc. These are democratic values, and India is the largest democracy, and India is a very robust democracy. Basically, we find that these reports are not rigorous. As Kanchan Gupta has mentioned, and I agree with him, these are all subjective. These are all based on the perception of individuals. The last point here, the second point I want to make is that, I don't think we can really discard and ignore these reports. I think these reports do play an important role in, even as far as the World Bank is concerned, in sovereign ratings, they have about 20% weightage, all these reports. And particularly when we are talking about, investments taking place on the basis of ESG, environment, social and governance issues, then these reports become very important. And lastly, big companies might have the wherewithal of knowing what a country is like. But when you want to promote tourism, when you want to invite normal people and they say, okay, what is the condition of women in your country? They will get influenced
by these opinions.
Yes.
So, I think that, with all the time constraints that we had, I think we've been able to pack in a lot of views and perspectives on this whole game plan of indices and ratings and rankings. Perhaps we shall get together one of these days in another episode and discuss further. But I think it's a good, positive, forward-looking note to end the conversation, that if people are out there trying to set narratives on a certain track, the solution is not just to talk about them or criticize. One has to come up with alternative narratives, and that is where perhaps there is need to think more, and in order to not only to expose them, but also to tell the world in our own way our story. On that note, we shall have to wind up this conversation on Media Scan. But thank you, gentlemen, Kanchan Da, for joining us, and Ashok Sajjanhar at such short notice. Thank you, sir. We will get back to you in another episode. Till then, namaskar.
Thank you.